Hey guys, welcome to the Bitcoin Fortress podcast, helping you increase your financial freedom. This is episode 147, recorded here on December 22nd, 2024. This podcast is for entertainment only and is not investing advice, so please do your own homework. And before we get started, just want to wish you happy holidays. I will be taking a short break, so this will be the last episode of 2024, and we'll be back in January to cover what's new and exciting in Bitcoin. So, with that, we'll jump right into the market news. Wall Street suffered its worst weekly loss in just over a month on Friday as market participants received a reality check from the Federal Reserve. The central bank on Wednesday delivered a quarter-point interest rate cut as widely expected, but it was the Fed's updated summary of economic projections, or dot plot, that was the story of the day. Policymakers now see higher inflation and fewer tax rate cuts in 2025, with Chair Jerome Powell stressing caution going forward. The Fed's actions roiled the markets on Wednesday, sending the Nasdaq Composite plunging more than 3%, and the benchmark S&P 500 to its worst session since early August. The negative sentiment did not last too long, however. After attempting a rebound on Thursday, U.S. equities bounced back in earnest on Friday, helped by a soft November core personal consumption expenditures price index reading, a gauge that is widely seen as the Fed's preferred inflation marker. Still, with the Fed's hawkish tilt, it remains to be seen whether a Santa rally is in the cards. For the week, the S&P 500 slipped 2%, while the blue chip Dow shed 2.3%, the Nasdaq fell 1.8%. Looking ahead, in light of the holidays kicking off in earnest this week, Wall Street is faced with a largely uneventful economic calendar and no major scheduled corporate earnings. Wednesday, Christmas Day, will be a market holiday, while the day before Christmas will see a truncated trading session. Still, market participants will be on the lookout to see whether a Santa rally materializes this year. The stock market phenomenon occurs when equities gain on the last 5 trading days of December and the first 2 trading days of January. Federal Reserve this week delivered a reality check in the form of higher inflation projections and a slower pace of interest rate cuts. The hawkish messaging sent Wall Street to its worst week in just over a month. The question now is whether the US stock market will be able to surge in the home stretch or slide, though it is still shaping up to be a strong 2024 for the benchmark S&P 500 index with gains of more than 24%. Getting into the news, we'll start with block 875753, important news of the week, courtesy of No BS Bitcoin. Samurai Wallet pretrial hearing moved to March 12th, trial set for November 3rd, 2025. The pretrial hearing was postponed due to an increased volume of discovery. According to the filing, an FBI team is reviewing a total of 45 devices seized from developers Keone Rodriguez and William Lonergan Hill for privileged material, aiming to release the remaining data by early 2025. To date, 17 terabytes of discovery, over half the total, has been shared, with additional data forthcoming before the trial. Zach Cohen of the Bitcoin Policy Institute has also published a policy brief examining the U.S. Department of Justice's alarming legal theory and its implications for Samurai Wallet and Bitcoin self-custody. Roman Storm, the founder of Tornado Cash, argues that the Fifth Circuit's order warrants dismissal. The developer has renewed his bid to dismiss money laundering and sanctions violations charges, citing a recent Fifth Circuit decision that found the company's smart contracts were not sectionable property. El Salvador to scale back Bitcoin policies for $1.4 billion IMF loan deal. The country finalized a 4-year, $1.4 billion IMF deal strained by its Bitcoin adoption. The agreement is set to make Bitcoin use voluntary for the private sector, limits public sector Bitcoin activities, and phases out government involvement in the Chivo wallet. It may also unlock extra $3.5 billion in development bank funds. Taxes will only be paid in US dollars, and the government's participation in the crypto e-wallet Chivo will be gradually unwound. Transparency, regulation, and supervision of digital assets will be enhanced to safeguard financial stability, consumer and investor protection, and financial integrity, said the IMF. El Salvador will continue buying Bitcoin at an accelerated pace, said Stacy Herbert of the country's Bitcoin office in response to the IMF's press release. She also posted a bullet point list contradicting certain points outlined in the IMF's press release, as El Salvador added 11 more Bitcoin to its strategic Bitcoin reserves the same day. Btrust announces Q4 2024 grant recipients. LND and Polar developer Abdullahi Yunus has been awarded the starter grant, while LDK developer Enigbe Ochikelier and BTC Pay server contributor Tobechi Chukwuleta will transition to the Btrust open source cohort, as announced in a blog post. Apply for the Btrust Builders 2025 Boss Cohort. Btrust Builders, in partnership with Chaincode Labs, is inviting applications for the 2025 Builders January cohort. This part-time 3-month fully remote program aims to support passionate software developers in Africa to contribute to Bitcoin open source software. Applications are open until December 27th. The Human Rights Foundation grants 7 Bitcoin to 20 Bitcoin projects. The Human Rights Foundation announced that its Bitcoin Development Fund is granting a total of 7 Bitcoin to 20 global projects. These grants support technical education in authoritarian regimes, independent media, decentralized mining, and private financial solutions for human rights groups with a focus on Latin America, Asia, and Africa. OpenSats announces ninth wave of Nostr grants. Projects included in this wave of funding are Algo Relay, Pokey, Nostr Safebox, Persian Nips, and LumiLumi. Spiral has renewed its grant to BTC Pay Server, a popular, free, and open source Bitcoin payment processor that allows users to accept Bitcoin without extra fees or intermediaries. Chaincode Labs awards scholarship to youngest ever Bitcoin Core contributor. Ishana Misra, a 17-year-old student, was selected from 232 applicants worldwide for a scholarship that covers 1 year of her academic expenses. She has the opportunity to renew the scholarship each year, potentially funding her entire undergraduate education. Foundation introduces Passport Prime personal security platform. The company has introduced its third generation device, Passport Prime, which is a personal security platform and signing device aimed at both first time and experienced users. It comes with a hardware wallet, a multi factor authenticator, an encrypted flash drive, and a secure app platform. Craig Wright has been handed a suspended 1-year sentence in the UK for continuing to sue Bitcoin developers. The sentence is suspended for 2 years, meaning he will only serve time if he reoffends during that period. Justice Mellor also ordered Wright to drop his latest lawsuit against Square and Bitcoin developers. Additionally, the Crypto Open Patent Alliance has secured reimbursement for legal expenses totaling £145,000, or roughly $181,500 US. Jerome Powell, we're not allowed to own Bitcoin. During a December 19th press conference, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell has rejected the idea of adding Bitcoin to the Federal Reserve's balance sheet, citing legal limitations under the Federal Reserve Act. We're not allowed to own Bitcoin. The Federal Reserve Act says what we can own, and we're not looking for a law change. That kind of thing is for Congress to consider, but we're not looking for a law change at the Fed, Powell said. On Wednesday, the Federal Reserve also lowered the interest rate by 25 basis points. New FASB fair value accounting rules for Bitcoin are officially live. US-based corporations are now permitted to value their Bitcoin holdings at fair market price, allowing their balance sheets to accurately and promptly represent these assets and increasing trust and transparency for shareholders. ESMA releases last policy documents in preparation for MiCA. The European Securities and Markets Authority released the final set of reports containing regulatory technical standards and guidelines, paving the way for the full implementation of the markets in crypto assets regulation. Demeester, in a post on X, says, in 13 days, EU Bitcoin exchanges are forced to store your personal Bitcoin address and your home address. In some, they become lethal honeypots, making hodlers vulnerable to hacks, home invasions, and future aggressive taxation. In time, countries could exit the EU over this. And it's probably not wrong about that. The Bitcoin Policy Institute drafts a proposal for an executive order establishing a strategic Bitcoin reserve in the United States. The draft mandates consolidating government held Bitcoin within 7 days of signing, prohibits selling seized Bitcoin, and instead diverts it to the country's Bitcoin reserve, and establishes a Bitcoin acquisition program within 60 days to purchase at least $21 billion in Bitcoin. Coin Center's top policy priorities for 2025, the nonprofit focused on policy issues facing cryptocurrencies, presented its agenda to protect developers and users of open blockchains next year. Top policy issues include stop unjust prosecutions of non-custodial software developers, stop the misuse of sanctions laws to block Americans from domestic transactions, protect Americans holding their own crypto, sensible tax reform for American crypto users, equal tax treatment for block rewards, repeal and fix harmful crypto tax requirements, clarify securities and commodities law. European MEP Sarah Canafo calls for a strategic Bitcoin reserve. French member of the European Parliament, Sarah Canafo proposed the establishment of a strategic Bitcoin reserve for the European Union. She also expressed opposition to the European Central Bank's digital euro project. Ohio introduces a proposal to establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve. State Representative Derek Marin has introduced a bill titled the Ohio Bitcoin Reserve Act, HB 703, which aims to create a state-managed Bitcoin reserve. Bitcoin strategic reserve discussions reached Japan. Japanese legislator Satoshi Hamada has urged the local authorities to investigate the integration of Bitcoin into the nation's foreign exchange reserves. Malaysian Ministry of Finance seized low instances of Bitcoin use in money laundering. Lim Hui Ying, the country's deputy finance minister, explained that this conclusion was based on the latest virtual assets risk assessment. MicroStrategy acquires an additional 15,350 Bitcoin. The company bought $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin at $100,386 per coin, and now lays claim to a total of 439,000 Bitcoin. MicroStrategy secures NASDAQ 100 inclusion. The company will be added to the NASDAQ 100 index on December 23rd, confirmed NASDAQ. Semler Scientific added 211 Bitcoin to its balance sheet. The healthcare technology firm acquired $21.5 million worth of coins at an average price of $101,890 per Bitcoin and increased its holdings to 2,084 Bitcoin. Leaf Brands to integrate Bitcoin into its balance sheet. The California-based publicly traded cannabis company has partnered with Canaccord Genuity for a $5 million Bitcoin-backed debenture offering. Jet King Infotrain becomes India's first publicly listed company to adopt Bitcoin treasury strategy. The company purchased 12 Bitcoin, 26% of its market cap, on December 9th, announced the firm's CEO, Avinash Barwani. The corporate Bitcoin game theory is playing out exactly as planned. Yellow Card partners with Lightspark, Africa's largest fiat to crypto on and off ramp provider, and Lightning Network infrastructure solutions for enterprises provider have partnered to extend the UMA network to 20 African countries via Lightspark Extend. Chinese automotive services company Cango Inc. emerges as one of the larger public miners. Company purchased 32 exahash per second of Antminer ASICs from Bitmain for $256 million in cash back in November. Additionally, the firm has an outstanding contract for another 18 exahash per second, which would bring its total operational hash rate to 50 exahash per second, matching Mara's self-mining capacity, reports Blockspace Media. The company has already mined 363.9 Bitcoin last month, all of which it currently holds. Mara buys 15,574 Bitcoin using proceeds of 0% convertible notes. The company invested $1.53 billion at $98,529 per coin and currently holds 44,394 Bitcoin. Bitcoin miner Hut 8 buys 990 Bitcoin. The miner purchased approximately 990 Bitcoin at an average price of $101,710 each and now holds 10,096 Bitcoin, valued at around $1 billion. And not to be left out, Riot Platforms buys 667 Bitcoin, increases net holdings to 17,429 Bitcoin. The Bitcoin mining infrastructure developer used $67.5 million for the latest purchase, paying an average price of $101,135 per coin. CleanSpark announced plans to raise $550 million through convertible notes. Unlike competing Bitcoin miners Mara and Riot, CleanSpark has not announced any intentions to use its proceeds to buy additional Bitcoin. In November, the company sold 4.2% of its mined Bitcoin after maintaining ownership of over 99% of its monthly Bitcoin production since January, reports The Miner Mag. E4 Pool is shutting down due to mining regulations in Russia. To be a legitimate mining pool in Russia, you must register yourself in a special government list of mining operators, the team added. Also, you must send all data about your clients to the tax office. Our cypherpunk views can't match all this. Greenpeace's Change the Code campaign has been suspended. Daniel Batten reports that there have been no related actions, posts, or media releases for 6 months, and the Change the Code campaign handle on X has been inactive since January 2024. The hostile Bitcoin mining misinformation campaign was launched in March 29, 2022, following a $5 million donation by Ripple co-founder Chris Larson. It resulted in some of the most metal Bitcoin artwork to date. There's a picture here of some of that in the article. Major transparency issues with blockchain surveillance firms. Investigative reporter Lola L33TZ found that the address cited in Chainalysis' report on alleged Syrian rebels' crypto funding received a total of $807, while other participants had raised around $13,000 since November 27th via USDT. The report also incorrectly linked sanctioned Bitcoin addresses with Tron campaigns. Additionally, the sanctioned address had not transacted since August 2021, calling the report's accuracy into question. If we want to have an honest discussion on terrorist financing on Bitcoin, blockchain surveillance firms need to be held to scientific standards and a minimum degree of transparency in their operations. Otherwise, we run the risk of designing policy based on the claims of for-profit surveillance firms that can hardly be held accountable, said the reporter. BlackRock's Bitcoin ad sparks controversy. In the December 17th video, BlackRock stated that Bitcoin's fixed 21 million supply controls supply, purchasing power, and helps avoid currency misuse, while adding a legal disclaimer stating that there is no guarantee that Bitcoin's 21 million supply cap will not be changed, sparking some heated discussions. Weak randomness vulnerability in early preview version of Proton Wallet's mobile app. Zellic disclosed an encryption vulnerability in Proton Wallet that affected its wallet and backup mnemonic security. The bug only affected users who used the preview version of the Proton Wallet application, had early access to the wallet application, and created their recovery phrases through that application. New phishing campaign targeting Ledger users. The scam impersonates a data breach notification and prompts individuals to verify their recovery phrase. Once users provide their recovery phrase, the information is stolen and used to access and steal their cryptocurrency assets, reports Bleeping Computer. Electric Capital released 2024 Crypto Developer Report. According to the report, approximately 1,200 monthly active developers work in the Bitcoin ecosystem, with 501, or 42% of them, focusing on Bitcoin scaling solutions. It also states that over 120 new developers explore the Bitcoin ecosystem every month and highlights significantly higher developer numbers in the Ethereum and Solana ecosystems. The report also finds that the number of established Bitcoin developers is steadily increasing over time. Awake Earth Festival in Costa Rica to feature a one-day Bitcoin Freedom Experience. The event will take place from February 20th to 24th. You have the option of buying just a one-day pass on February 24th to the Bitcoin Day, or you can buy a full pass for the full event, February 20th to 24th, said Bitcoin Jungle. Learn more about the event here, and there's a link in the article. And as always, I'll put links to all the articles that I went over in the show notes. Moving on to Hodler's Digest. This is for December 15th to 21st from Cointelegraph.com. We will skip the shitcoinery unless it's interesting. Haley Welch, the influencer behind the viral Hawk Tua video clip, has released a statement after a meme coin bearing her handle was pumped and dumped quickly after its December launch. In a December 20th X post, Welch said she was fully cooperating with lawyers who represented investors in the Hawk Tua coin. The crypto users filed a lawsuit against the project's creators and partners. Welch herself was not named as a defendant in the suit, alleging they engaged in the promotion and sale of an unregistered securities offering. Kathy Wood, founder of ARK Invest, predicts a surge in mergers and acquisitions will follow Donald Trump's election and expects this influx to support innovative strategies. In a Bloomberg interview, Wood said that the U.S. Federal Trade Commission changes could ease previously imposed regulatory barriers that stifled M&As. Wood also reaffirmed her stance on Bitcoin, anticipating the cryptocurrency surpassing $1 million by 2030 and attributing the bullish sentiment to Bitcoin's fixed supply and scarcity compared to gold. With high expectations for the upcoming Trump administration, Wood foresees a dual impact resulting in a boom for M&As among tech startups and a potential parabolic price movement driven by reduced regulatory friction. Liquidators of the bankrupt cryptocurrency exchange Cryptopia have started distributing millions to users affected by a hack that took place almost 6 years ago. Cryptopia's liquidating firm Grant Thornton on December 20th announced the start of distributions to more than 10,000 verified account holders affected by Cryptopia's hack in 2019. Over the past 2 days, verified account holders of Bitcoin and Dogecoin received crypto distributions worth at least 400 million New Zealand dollars or 225 million US, the liquidator said. The payouts mark a significant milestone in Cryptopia's liquidation process since Grant Thornton launched the Cryptopia Claims portal in 2020. Following this distribution, liquidators will continue to follow the approved process, including providing notice of cutoff dates before distributing the remaining Bitcoin, Doge, and other coins to account holders, Grant Thornton said. And don't keep your coins on an exchange, and you don't have to worry about that. Ilya Lichtenstein, the hacker who stole and laundered Bitcoin from the crypto exchange Bitfinex, has released a statement on social media after being sentenced to 5 years in prison. In a December 19th X post, Lichtenstein reaffirmed many of the statements he made in court leading to his incarceration. He confessed to hacking Bitfinex in 2016 and laundering thousands of Bitcoin, but suggests he wanted to shoulder the entirety of the blame rather than his wife, Heather Morgan, who was also sentenced to prison time for her role in laundering Bitcoin. I knew what I was doing was wrong, and I did it anyway because I didn't care. I didn't care about anyone else except myself, said Lichtenstein in a video message from prison, often appearing as though he were reading a prepared statement. Prediction of the week on December 20th, Bitcoin's daily chart produced 3 consecutive red candles for the first time since the first week of November, which coincidentally was the lead up period to Donald Trump's U.S. election victory. Another similarity between the last time 3 or more red candles were observed on the daily chart was that when Bitcoin retested the 50-day EMA level, with Bitcoin's price dropping by more than 15% since its all-time high. One analyst said that most of the drawdown is potentially over for the largest cryptocurrency. With Bitcoin price falling under $93,000 on December 20th, Captain Fabic, a pseudonymous independent crypto trader, said that Bitcoin's correction was approaching a conclusion. In an X post, the trader highlighted that Bitcoin's current decline is due to a massive bearish divergence between its price and relative strength index over the past month, Such divergences are usually followed by an 8 to 10% fall, which is considered a healthy reset. Spud of the week, Eric Council Jr., the individual who allegedly hacked the United States Securities and Exchange Commission's X account in January and posted a message suggesting that Bitcoin exchange traded funds had been approved, will be allowed to travel for the holidays. In a December 13th filing with the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia, Judge Amy Berman Jackson said counsel could travel to North Carolina with a third-party custodian between December 23rd and 29th. The judge said the alleged hacker must provide pretrial services with his precise itinerary and information concerning where he will be staying at least 2 business days before traveling. Counsel pleaded not guilty to hacking the SEC's X account on January 9th and posting a message suggesting the commission had greenlighted spot Bitcoin ETFs at a time when many in the industry expected a decision. The fake message, complete with a quote from SEC Chair Gary Gensler, shook markets before the commission officially approved the investment vehicles roughly 24 hours later. Cryptocurrency market commentators and observers have predicted positive market trends associated with United States President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration in January 2025. But BitMEX co-founder Arthur Hayes has a different perspective. Hayes cautioned against the high expectations of quick crypto policy changes promised by Trump, highlighting a gap between market anticipation and the realities of policy implementation. In his Trump Truth blog post published on December 17th, Hayes said his investment fund Maelstrom plans to trim some positions early to buy later at lower prices in the first half of 2025. Unlike many forecasters, Hayes doubts that the US and other countries will start creating national Bitcoin reserves anytime soon. Bybit, a global cryptocurrency exchange, said it will halt withdrawal and custody services for French users starting January 8th, 2025 at 8 a.m. UTC, amid an increase in regulatory scrutiny by French financial authorities. The company advised affected users to withdraw their funds before the deadline to avoid complications with account access or fund transfers. Bybit plans to transfer unclaimed assets exceeding 10 USD coin to CoinHouse, a licensed cryptocurrency custodian in France. Users will need to complete a verification process with CoinHouse to regain access to their holdings. For accounts with balances under 10 USDC, Bybit will impose a termination fee equivalent to 10 USDC, deducting it from available assets. The move reflects growing regulatory pressures on global crypto exchanges as legislation in many jurisdictions looks to get a tighter grip on crypto. Next up from Crypto Potato, this was posted today. These challenges affect institutional crypto adoption strategies, according to a survey. A new survey by the blockchain infrastructure provider P2P.org has unveiled some challenges and trends affecting institutions' crypto adoption strategies. It also highlighted the opportunities that institutions could explore to adapt to the evolving practices in the crypto industry. The survey included participation from more than 15 institutional players, with intermediaries, investment funds, and venture capital funds making up 46%, 31%, and 23% of the respondents, respectively. It is worth mentioning that the intermediaries in this context refer to companies that manage assets on behalf of others, while institutions as a whole are those with large total value locked. According to the results sent to Crypto Potato, 33.4% of respondents said the biggest challenge faced by their company is integrating new crypto yield products aligned with their risk tolerance. Another 13.3% revealed that regulatory compliance affects their ability to incorporate new products in their offerings. Additionally, 6.67% of the participants said it is difficult to find the right strategy for allocating crypto assets, while another 6.67% disclosed that integrating multiple yield solutions at a go has been a big challenge. Interestingly, 6.67% of the respondents attributed their biggest challenge to custodians limiting product functionality, while the remaining 33.29% mentioned other challenges not outlined in the report. P2P.org identified risk as a recurring theme during the interviews, and it was mentioned across multiple levels, including technology, operations, and regulation. For technology, the respondents insisted that smart contracts pose a risk to their organization's security and reliability. In operations, the surveyees explained how certain blockchain mechanics could affect the movement of funds across industries. For example, withdrawing funds from staked tokens could make the assets unavailable for some time, limiting how quickly capital can be redeployed to other business areas. When it came to regulation, the participants disclosed that one of their biggest challenges was integrating a new product that was in line with the regulatory guidelines for the business region. The involvement of legal and compliance team here is critical to assess the exact risk factor, as reported in one of the interviews. Failing to correctly assess the regulatory layer can affect the resources allocated to a new product initiative, which might later be deemed unacceptable by regulatory authorities, P2P org stated. With regulatory requirements posing a significant challenge, these institutions are facing limitations in product integration and innovation. Moving on to BitcoinNews.com. This was posted on December 20th. A little bit more detail on El Salvador to scale back Bitcoin plans in $1.4 billion loan deal with the IMF. El Salvador has agreed with the International Monetary Fund for a $1.4 billion loan in exchange for toning down its Bitcoin plans. This 40-month deal is to stabilize the economy and implement financial reforms, but it comes with big changes to the Bitcoin experiment that has been a bold move and a global controversy. Under the deal, Bitcoin acceptance will be voluntary for businesses in El Salvador. Previously, the 2021 Bitcoin law required businesses to accept Bitcoin alongside the US dollar, the official currency. But that was mandatory, and according to the IMF, raised economic risks and low usage among the population. IMF said the new measures will significantly diminish the risks of Bitcoin. Legal reforms will make acceptance of Bitcoin by the private sector voluntary, the IMF said. El Salvador will also phase out its involvement in the state-owned Chivo wallet that was launched to facilitate Bitcoin transactions. Despite the initial hype and a $30 Bitcoin bonus, the wallet has had technical issues and low long-term usage. Taxes in El Salvador will still be paid in US dollars only, further reducing Bitcoin's role in public sector transactions. The government will also limit its involvement in Bitcoin activities, something the IMF sees as key to financial stability. The deal includes a broader package of economic reforms to improve El Salvador's fiscal health. One of the targets is to reduce the debt to GDP ratio that reached 85% in 2024. The reforms aim to improve the primary fiscal balance by 3.5% of GDP over 3 years. The IMF deal will unlock an additional $3.5 billion in financing from the World Bank and other regional development banks to support the country's recovery. El Salvador was the first country in the world to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender in 2021, a move championed by President Nayib Bukele as a way to achieve financial independence. The government also bought a lot of Bitcoin. It currently has around 6,000 Bitcoin worth around $600 million. Despite that, Bitcoin adoption has not been as high as expected. A recent survey showed that 92% of Salvadorans don't use Bitcoin for transactions, up from 88% the previous year. Critics say the policy put unnecessary risks to the economy, while supporters see it as a long-term investment. The IMF has been critical of El Salvador's Bitcoin plan for years, citing volatility and macroeconomic risks. In response to those concerns, the IMF suggested scaling back Bitcoin's legal tender status and not issuing Bitcoin-backed bonds. The recent agreement is a compromise and has been met with mixed reactions. Max Kaiser, Bitcoin advisor to President Bukele, called the IMF's stance bureaucratic nonsense and said Bitcoin use in El Salvador is voluntary and growing. The IMF deal is a new chapter in El Salvador's Bitcoin journey where the government's innovation meets stability. Critics are not happy and see it as a retreat from the bold vision that put El Salvador at the forefront of the Bitcoin revolution. For supporters, it's a way to have stability without giving up Bitcoin. As the IMF executive board is about to approve the deal, El Salvador has to align its internal goals with international expectations. President Bukele is popular among Salvadorans and will have to walk this tightrope as his government continues to figure out the role of Bitcoin in the country's future. El Salvador's economy is strong and resilient during these changes, with remittances, tourism, and security improving. For now, the country's Bitcoin experiment is ongoing, just smaller and more gradual. And I would just have to laugh if he borrowed all this money in dollars and then YOLO'd it into Bitcoin, kind of doing like a nation state version of MicroStrategy. That would be hilarious. Of course, they might not get any more money from the IMF after that, but we'll see what happens. Thought this was an interesting story from Bitcoin.com news. This article, let's see, was posted 3 days ago. This man sold his house for Bitcoin in 2017, and now he can buy 25 homes. The world first heard about this guy's name is Didi Taihutu. The world first heard about Taihutu's bold move in October 2017 when Bitcoin.com News covered his story. Back then, Taihutu admitted to that many people called him crazy, but he was quick to defend his choice. We are an adventurous family and are going to gamble for a moment to live minimalist lives. If you'd ever take a risk, life is boring, Taihutu explained at the time. On December 17th, 2024, Taihutu hopped onto X to share his wild story, reflected on the bold move he took years ago and how it paid off in a big way. We sold our $300,000 house in 2017 for 100 Bitcoin, he said. We could buy back that same house, which today costs 400K, for 4 Bitcoin. If we would have held the 300K in a bank account from 2017, we would not have been able to buy back the house. That's the Bitcoin difference. With Bitcoin priced at 100K, 100 Bitcoin today is worth a jaw-dropping $10 million. For perspective, if Taihutu held on to every Satoshi, he could snag 25 homes priced at 400K each. However, the Taihutu's family's journey of keeping all their wealth in crypto hasn't exactly been smooth sailing. After climbing past 60K in 2021, Bitcoin later tumbled to 17K following the collapse of FTX at the end of the year in 2022. During that turbulent period, Taihutu revealed plans to move $1 million in crypto to decentralized exchange platforms. The year before FTX's downfall in 2022, he had told the press that he was spreading his family's crypto holdings across multiple nation states using cold storage. Taihutu's story is a testament to the power of conviction and adaptability in the face of financial uncertainty. His willingness to embrace risk and pivot during challenging times highlights a mindset that values long-term vision over short-term setbacks. For Taihutu and his family, Bitcoin isn't just an investment. It became a lifestyle shaped by belief in the future of decentralized assets. As Bitcoin continues to make headlines, Taihutu's journey serves as a unique case study in daring decision-making and financial foresight. Next up from CoinDesk, this was posted on December 19th. VIX's second largest spike in history indicates a local bottom for Bitcoin, according to Van Straten. Wednesday, December 18th will go down in history as a day of market panic triggered by the 25 basis point Fed rate cut and Chair Jerome Powell's hawkish outlook. Bitcoin briefly tumbled below 100,000. U.S. equities dropped around 3%, while the dollar index soared to a two-year high of 108, which continues to put pressure on currencies worldwide. The most significant movement came from the CBOE Volatility Index, or VIX, which skyrocketed by 74%, marking the largest one-day jump in the Wall Street so-called fear gauge since February 5th, 2018. It was also the second largest increase in its history. The VIX serves as a measure of market fear and expected volatility over the next 30 days. Historically, significant spikes in the VIX have marked local bottoms for both Bitcoin and the S&P 500. Examining the top three one-day changes in the VIX, the first occurred on February 5th, 2018, when it surged by 116%. On that day, Bitcoin plunged 16% to $6,891, which turned out to be a local bottom. By February 20th, prices had rebounded to over $11,000. The second largest spike in the VIX occurred on December 18th, registering a 74% increase. The third biggest spike happened on August 5th, 2024, during the yen carry trade unwind when VIX jumped 65%. On that occasion, Bitcoin dropped 6% to hit a local bottom around 54,000 and climbed back up to over 64,000 by August 23rd. A similar pattern has consistently played out in the S&P 500 over the years, shared by Charlie Bilello, chief market strategist at Creative Planning Show. Let's see if history repeats itself. At press time, Bitcoin traded above 102, while the S&P 500 futures pointed to a positive open with a 0.37% gain. And finally, an interesting article from Cointelegraph. This was posted or updated today. Quantum computing will fortify Bitcoin signatures, and this is according to Adam Back. Advancements in quantum computing have the potential to strengthen the Bitcoin network in the coming decades, even though there are widespread concerns about the technology's ability to compromise cryptographic encryption. Industry insiders have previously voiced concerns that quantum computing may break cryptographic algorithms in the future thanks to its ability to perform computational processes at previously unimagined speed thanks to advancements in quantum physics. Yet, despite these concerns, quantum computing could lead to stronger Bitcoin network, according to Adam Back, co-founder and CEO of Blockstream, the inventor of Hashcash and one of the most notable cryptographers in the industry. Post-quantum is still several decades out at least, which is why a hash-based PQ scheme will never be viable, wrote Back in a December 21st X post. PQ signature research will eventually produce conservative, well-reviewed, more compact signatures, and Bitcoin can add those schemes as another option. Bitcoin signatures prevent Bitcoin transactions from being altered by another party as an essential part of the network security mechanism. When a transaction occurs, private keys are used to sign the transfer as mathematical proof that the Bitcoin is owned by the address holder. Bitcoin and the future security of its network have garnered increasing attention from investors over the past 2 weeks following the cryptocurrency's historic achievement of surpassing $100,000 milestone for the first time on December 6th. Concerns about quantum computing's potential to disrupt cryptocurrency transactions have been reignited by Google's latest quantum computing chip. This chip reportedly solves a computational problem in under 5 minutes, a task that would take even the most advanced supercomputers approximately 10 septillion years to complete. The new chip, known as Willow, can exponentially correct errors and process certain computations at a mind-boggling pace, Hartmut Nevin, Google's quantum AI lead, said in a December 9th blog. It lends credence to the notion that quantum computation occurs in many parallel universes, in line with the idea that we live in a multiverse, a prediction first made by David Deutsch, Nevin added. Tech entrepreneur and former senior product manager for Google, Kevin Rose, said in a December 9th statement on X that Willow was still far short of being a threat to crypto. According to Rose, estimates for compromising Bitcoin's encryption require a quantum computer with approximately 13 million qubits to achieve decryption within 24 hours. In contrast, Google's Willow chip, while a significant advancement, comprises 105 qubits, he said. Ethereum co-founder Vitalik Buterin is also preparing for a post-quantum era. Buterin has already proposed a way to mitigate the risk of quantum computing for Ethereum with a simple hard fork that could subvert the issue. And finally, wanted to highlight this week's featured post on Bitcoin Fortress Substack. The article is entitled A Bitcoin Holiday Message. So check it out. I will include a link in the show notes. Also wanted to recognize my weekly top boost on Fountain at God's Death with 536 sats. Thank you, sir. And with that, we will wrap up. Happy holidays, and I hope you have a happy, healthy, and prosperous new year. Thanks for listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please like and leave a comment. Also, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss an episode. You can also follow my Substack at bitcoinfortress.substack.com, and I will be posting all through the holidays. I have several interesting posts set up, so check it out. And you can follow me on Nostr. My NPub is included in the show notes. Uncensorable social media. Gotta love it. And with that, I will talk to y'all next year. Bye bye.